What's up, Jets Nation, and welcome back to another episode of the Juicy Jet Podcast. I'm your host, Kevin Rooney, and we are a few days into free agency. We're at the weekend. Things are calming down, so I wanted to jump on, recap where we're at so far with free agency, look at some of the holes the Jets still have on their roster, and how it's going to impact the NFL draft moving forward. So there's been a lot of news in the past week. There's things happening constantly. There's still news happening today, which we'll talk a little bit about as well. But it's a fun time of year in the NFL. There's still some players out there that could be signed to different teams and all of that good stuff. But this is where it starts to slow down and you start to switch your kind of your purview towards the NFL draft, as we're really only, a little over a month and a half out. So it's coming. It's coming quick, and it's going to be really exciting because I think the Jets did a really nice job over the past week building out a roster that I think you can plug and play some of these top draft picks right into and can make us a lot better of a team. So I'm not trying to be the overly optimistic Jets fan, but it was really hard for us to get worse than where we were this past season. So I think we have an adult football team now. So let's go through what this kind of looks like, where we're at, and what we want to do moving forward. So to recap some of the moves that the Jets have made over the past 5 days. Actually, let's go back a little bit farther. Let's go back maybe the past 3-4 weeks. So obviously you have the T'Vondre Sweat trade, which is a big one to shore up our defensive, I guess we'll call it nose tackle, but we'll say D tackle because there's going to be a rotation there. So I thought that was a big one, and obviously you lose Jermaine Johnson, which is a bummer, but it's good to get T'Vondre Sweat. You signed Joseph Asai, DN from the Bengals. You signed Demario Davis for his third stint with the New York Jets at Mike linebacker, so he will be the green dot guy. We won't need Jamie and Sherwood to do that anymore, and he brings a ton of leadership. He's not going to let people fool around on that defense like we saw last year, which was a disaster. You're bringing in Aaron Glenn favorite David Onyemata to rotate with T'Vondre Sweat on that defensive line. Kingsley Igbenegbu. No, that's not how you say it. Kingsley Igbenegbu. I think that's the way you say it. I'm going to have to get used to that because I think he's actually going to be a pretty good player against the run for us. I think he's going to play a lot on first and second down. I'm hoping he can set the edge like a Calvin Pace. Maybe he plays a little bit of D end as well. So he's been a good run stuffer. Probably not going to provide a lot in the passing game, but that's okay. We were the worst run defense in the league last year, so we really need somebody to help out there. Then you signed Dane Belton, the safety from the New York Giants. For him, he's probably going to rotate in nickel. He's going to play a lot of special teams. The big thing with him is he's a terrific tackler. He had, over 120 tackles last year at the safety position, which is unbelievable. And we had a ton of missed tackles on defense last year. So it's good to have someone like a Dane Belton, and he was super cheap. So great value signing for the New York Jets there. At corner, you bring in Nahshon Wright. He had 5 interceptions last year, and we had 0 as a defense. So great to bring him aboard. I'm surprised how cheap his deal was. He's a big guy, 6'4". He's kind of like I guess the way you would say it is he goes for the big play. So it's really all or nothing. He's going to go for the big play, try to get the pick, and if not, it's probably going to be a touchdown the other way. So I think that's why he was a little bit cheaper. But he's a guy who can actually start across from Brandon Stevens, or he's a guy that could be our third corner. And we've had injuries. Azaria Thomas was injured. We don't know really what he is yet. So I think it's good to have a guy like him. And it's only a 1-year deal, so we can see how it goes. And if he plays really well, you extend him. And Brandon Stevens' contract will pretty much be up at the end of this year anyway. So I think that's a really good move. Minkah Fitzpatrick. We trade a 7th-round pick for Minkah Fitzpatrick. We have not had, it feels like we haven't had a real safety in a really long time. So even though he's a little bit on the older end, he's 29 years old, and his play is probably not up to standard, he's still probably a top 10 safety in the league. So very excited to get him, and the extension was pretty reasonable. So that's another good one. We signed a kicker, Cade York. Cade York is not one I'm super excited about. His career hit rate is about 70-ish%, which is not great, especially coming off of Nick Folk being almost perfect last year. So I think we'll bring in some competition for Cade York, but we needed to replace Nick Folk somehow. We re-signed Max Mitchell, comes back to be a depth offensive tackle. He was kind of our swing tackle last year, the 6th lineman. Kind of funny that he's like one of the rare draft picks that we've re-signed. So Max Mitchell is back and looks like he'll be behind either Olu or Armand Membu. Andrew Beck comes back at fullback. We love the fullback. We're going to place a lot of bets on Andrew Beck to score touchdowns this year. Mykal Walker, the linebacker, comes back. I have a sweet spot for Mykal Walker. I don't know why. I just really like him. And he was pretty good on special teams, so he'll be a backup to Demario Davis and Jamian Sherwood. Andre Cisco, this is a really surprising one that happened a few days ago. Andre Cisco comes back. Very disappointing season for him. I was excited because, he's a Jersey guy. He grew up a Jets fan. It was good to have him come back come to New York and be a part of our team. But he got hurt, I think only 8 games in. Obviously no interceptions. Looks like there were breakdowns in the secondary constantly. So, maybe this is kind of like a do-over where the coaching staff sees a lot in him. But, I don't know. I'm not banking on him being a starter. I'm not banking on him potentially even making the team. Seemed like it was a very a cheap deal to bring him back as well. And then finally, the last one that I haven't talked about yet that just happened today is Kene Nwangwu comes back. So now probably arguably the 2 greatest returners or I guess return duo in the NFL is back together with Kene Nwangwu and Isaiah Williams. Special teams was unbelievable last year. So if we feel that we're probably not going to be able to put up as many points as we would like, it's nice to have those 2 guys on special teams that can really turn the game for us. They were the only reason to watch the team the last 5 weeks of the season. So happy to have Kene back. If his hamstrings just stay intact, he will probably be one of the best returners in the NFL. It's just he gets hurt way too much. So good to have him back. So that is it. Those are all the updates to our team over the past week or so, which is a lot. And then the final piece, well, I said that is it. But the final piece and the most important piece to all of this that we didn't talk about is Geno Smith. Obviously, it was a 6-7 swap for Geno Smith, and he's going to lead the Chargers at quarterback. I told you a few days ago I wasn't in love with it because Geno did me wrong back in the day. And, I hold a good grudge. I hold a really good grudge. But now that I've taken a breath, I've listened to a lot of people talk about it, I've thought about it long and hard, I think it's going to be okay. He's not going to be amazing, but he's probably one of the better options out there that reasonably wanted to come here. I mean, I still don't love the excuse of he's the only one that would come here when we've had 2 years to figure out the quarterback position and we haven't. So I'm kind of tired of hearing that, but I get it. Reasonably, if you sit back and look at it, not as a fan and, as let's say you're a fan of another team and you look at it and it's okay, it makes sense to have Geno come back here. We'll see how much I fall in love with him as the season goes on, but right now I'm okay with the move, and I think he's at least thrown for 4,000 yards before. He's thrown for multiple touchdowns before. It feels like we never have a quarterback that throws more than 10 touchdown passes in a year, so it's going to be nice to have someone who knows how to sling it. And with a guy like Frank Reich, you got Geno Smith. We have Garrett Wilson. Hopefully Geno can get the ball out quickly to limit some of those turnovers that he had last year. And then, of course, he doesn't have Chip Kelly anymore, which sounded like an absolute disaster in Vegas last year. So that's it. That are all the updates to our team over the past 3-ish weeks. So let's talk about the depth chart. So there are a couple things that we're really missing still, but they're not the big signing swings that you need to take anymore. Now it's all about value. It's about finding people to plug positions. It's depth, backups, all that kind of stuff. So let's start with quarterback. You obviously got Geno Smith. You've got Bailey Zappi on the roster as well. And then, of course, we have our tank commander. I guess we call him the tank commander himself, Brady Cook. And then we still have Justin Fields on the roster. I 100% believe that Justin Fields will be cut or traded in the next probably month and a half leading up to the draft. I'm going to guess if he is cut, it's going to be a post-June 1, which means we'll owe him some money this year, but we'll free up $20 million in cap space this year, and then owe him a little bit next year as well. But that's okay because the Aaron Rodgers will come off the books next year. So we'll see what happens with Fields. Either way, even if we do trade him, I do think we'd have to take on some of the money, and we have a lot of it, so it's totally fine. So that's the quarterback room. I would expect we need a backup badly. Now, there's a couple names being thrown around out there that are possibilities. You look at Andy Dalton from the Panthers. They just signed, I think it was Kenny Pickett, and they have Bryce Young. So it's either he's going to get cut or he'll get traded, something like that. But I think he's like an actual adult that could be a backup quarterback, kind of like the Tyrod Taylor that we had. I think that makes sense. Tyrod could come back. I don't think he will, but he could. I think that's an option. One of the interesting options that actually, when Matt came on this podcast and talked to us about some of his free agent additions, he talked about Will Levis. Will Levis would be an interesting one, still young, all that kind of stuff. Anthony Richardson is an option. I don't see him coming here. I think he's like destined for the Packers. It just makes a lot of sense there. That would be kind of a disaster here. I don't need someone like that. Who else? Carson Wentz is obviously still being talked about. He would be a tough one for me to get on board with. He seems to be a problem wherever he goes. So I'm kind of skipping out on that. But it seems like Andy Dalton's probably the move. Jake Browning's out there from the Bengals. Joe Flacco's still out there, but I highly doubt he comes back to the Jets. But you never know. Geno Smith just came back to the Jets, so I guess we'll see. So, yes, there's a lot of work to do still at quarterback. And then do you draft one? That's the other question. Are you going to take a Garrett Nussmeier, a Ty Simpson, a Drew Aller, someone like that to develop in the draft? I think you have to take one in the draft. It's just who's it going to be? Is it going to be Ty Simpson, who could start this year? Or is it going to be like a Drew Aller who might never see the field as a New York Jet? So that's where I'm at on quarterback. Running back, it seems like we're pretty solid with running back. It's the same room coming back. It's Brees, Keenan Nwanwu. It is Braylon Allen, which I don't know a ton about how his offseason recovery is going, but we'll see. And then, of course, you have Isaiah Davis. Is Braylon Allen the guy as the number 2 running back? I'm not sure. So it's, do you bring in another veteran to, compete or be in the roster just in case he gets hurt? I don't know. I think that's going to be a really interesting one to see if we draft a running back or we bring in somebody else, but it seems like the room is pretty set at this point. Fullback, obviously we're good on fullback with our guy Andrew Beck now that we brought him back. Let's talk about wide receiver. This is a big place where I think we need to make a move because right now the only receivers you have on the roster, Garrett Wilson, you've got A.D. Mitchell, you got Isaiah Williams. We no longer have John Mechie. John Mechie goes to the Panthers, so we no longer have him. We have Arian Smith, which we don't know if he can actually play football yet. You got Jamal Pritchett, who was good in the preseason, but he's so small. You've got Quentin Skinner still on the team, and he played a little bit at the end of the year. I like him because he's a big receiver, but I don't know. Is he an NFL player yet? I think we still have Irv Charles on the roster. He's coming back from that ACL injury from 2 years ago, but he's not an actual receiver. He's more of a gunner. So who's going to be the number 2? I can't have Garrett, AD, and then Isaiah Williams as our top 3. So this is where you have to look. Is the Brian Thomas Jr. trade going to happen? Are there other trades out there for wide receivers that we're not talking about? And then is there someone you're going to draft? At 16, are we taking Carnell Tate? Are we taking Mekhi Lemon? Are we taking Denzel Boston? Jordan Tyson? So there's some good receivers there, and you can even take some at 33 or 44 as well. Omar Cooper seems to be rising up the board, so he might not make it to 33, but he can be an option. So there's people out there. I don't love the second-round receiver thing because we seem to never be able to land that plane. So I'd rather either trade for Brian Thomas Jr. or draft someone at 16 if they make it to 16. That's the big question. So wide receiver is a big area of need right now. Tight end, it looks like we're pretty set with the same 3. No Stone Smart. Stone Smart is gone. I guess he could technically come back, but I don't see that happening. We've got Mason Taylor, Jeremy Ruckert, and Jelani Woods re-signed and came back. Do you want someone else to play and compete with Jeremy Ruckert? Is there someone else who should be catching the ball besides Mason Taylor? Because Mason Taylor, he got hurt last year, and they probably held him out a little bit just because he didn't want the injury to continue. But still, is there another tight end that you can bring in this room? And once again, it could be in the draft. Is Jelani Woods actually good? I don't think so. I haven't seen him play on the field once. So, there could be some competition from Ruckert, but Ruckert deserved to be back on the team for the way he played last year. So that is tight end. Offensive line. I think right now what I'm just looking for on the offensive line is depth. It seems like we got the starters in place. Oh, one guy I forgot to call out. Why did I not? Will we lose? Hold on. So the Jets obviously lose both John Simpson and John Simpson and AVT. So what did the Jets go ahead and do? They signed Geno Smith's old running mate, left guard Dylan Parham, who, pretty cheap deal. I think he'll plug right in, and he's probably like the same thing as John Simpson, to be honest, just a little bit younger. So I don't see like a huge drop-off there. And if Geno Smith wanted him to come here, I think that's a good sign. So, so we have a left guard now. But I don't think he's the long-term solution. I think the long-term solutions are our tackles that we already have in place. We got Olu, we got Armand Membu. Joe Tippmann, I would look to re-sign at right guard. Obviously, you got Josh Myers at center, but I don't think that's long-term either. So it's the left guard and center, I think, are the places where you got to look. We re-signed Chukwuma Okorafor to back up Membu and Olu. And then, of course, you got Max Mitchell, like we just talked about. So I think the big question is, do you draft one? Do you sign one? So I think we need the depth. You could take one at 16. I really don't want to take another guard at 16. I'm tired of taking an offensive lineman in the first round at this point. And you can definitely take one at 33 or 44. And I think Pregnon, from Oregon would be a good option at 44 if he makes it. So, yeah, we would need some depth there at offensive line. But otherwise, our tackles are set. Right guard is set. I think the starters are set. It's just who's next? Who's the backups, just in case someone gets hurt. All right, let's flip to the other side of the ball. At edge, I think we're pretty set across the board now. I think, obviously, the next big piece is going to be who do you draft at number 2? Is it David Bailey? Is it Arvell Reese? I still lean Reese. And then do they shock the world and not take an edge at 2 and they take a Sonny Styles instead? That's going to be one of the big questions. But I think at edge, if you have Arvell Reese, you got Will McDonald, Joseph Asai, who we just signed, Kingsley. I'm going to try it again. Kingsley, Enigbare. I think we're getting closer. Enigbare sounds right. I think you've got some good edge players there, or at least solid. I wouldn't say that they're like outstanding. We'll see if Will McDonald can take the next step. And then, of course, you still have like Braden McGregor, Eric Watts, guys that I'd never want to see play on this team again. But they're back there as depth, but I don't see them making the team. And then at defensive line, you've got a really nice defensive line room all of a sudden. You got Tavondre Sweat. You got David Onyemata, who we just signed. Harrison Phillips, who was great for us last year. You should slap the C on his chest. He should be a captain this year. Jawan Briggs had an outstanding season. You still have Mozzie Smith from the Quinnen Williams trade. So you feel really good. And then you got Peyton Page, who was an undrafted free agent last year. So you feel pretty good about that room. We went from having a disaster at defensive tackle to all of a sudden, like, it could be one of the strengths, especially against the run. So I feel pretty good about where we are with the D-line at this point. Now, you can never have too many, so you could look later in the draft to take someone there. I've heard a few folks in Jets land talking about potentially just signing another as well, but I don't know if it's going to be anything big. Linebacker, this is a place that there's a big question. Do you keep Jamien Sherwood or do you trade him? It seems like, I don't know, from my perspective, I'm probably at this point just going to keep him. But if you go into the draft and you surprise us and you take Sonny Styles at 2, which would be like so crazy, but exciting because I think he's going to be an amazing player. That means, do we trade Jamien Sherwood? And then, of course, do you want some depth? Like, we really only have Mykal Walker, and that's kind of it. You still have Francis Mawanoa, but I don't know. Is he a real football player? I'm not really sure yet. He had moments where he played well, but other moments where he looked absolutely lost out there. So I'm trying to think, like, if there's anyone else. And obviously, you got Demario Davis, which we're really excited about. But, yeah, I think we need some depth there as well. I could see us taking a swing at a linebacker, especially since Demario Davis is like 37. You want to get somebody young that can learn and all that kind of stuff. So, there's some good guys like C.J. Allen at the 33 range. The problem is we need more picks because there's so many good players in these first 2 rounds. I'd rather just move up and not take any of those picks from the late in the draft because we tend to not hit on them. So we'll see what happens there. Corner, I feel pretty good about corner. Once again, Aaron Glenn's a former corner, so he could take one in the draft, especially in the later rounds. But I don't feel the need to make a big move. With Brandon Stevens, Azaria Thomas, you got, who else? Nahshon Wright, obviously, who we just signed. I feel good. You got Jarvis Brownlee in the slot. You've got 3 safeties that can play all over the place with Malachi Moore. You got Minkah Fitzpatrick. You got Dane Belton and Andre Cisco, so actually 4. You can play some of them in the slot if you really need to. So I feel pretty good about that. And same thing with the safety room. I feel good about the safety room. But do you want to get a young safety? I could see us taking a young safety in the first 4 picks. It's just where. So obviously there's still work to do. And then, of course, we got to bring in someone to compete with Cade York at kicker. We have the greatest punter of all time on our team, so we don't have to worry about punter with Austin McNamara. So I don't know. I feel like we still have holes to fill. We're not going to be the greatest team in football because we don't really have a lot of superstars, but that's where the draft comes into play. I think if you can get a first-round receiver, a first-round edge player, those could be 2 superstars right there. and then you see how you fill in the rest of the roster with later in the draft. So there's a lot still to come over the next, month and a half. But like I said, a lot of it is just leading up to the draft and seeing what we do there, and then filling all the remaining spots after that. All right, so I think that's pretty much it. The last thing I just wanted to laugh about for a little bit is what is going on in Tennessee. It's like it's a joke at this point what Robert Saleh is doing, bringing in everyone who used to play here on that roster. They just traded for Solomon Thomas, which is insane that I don't understand. I don't understand why they brought him in. I mean, he was like a fun, like nice guy to watch play, but he wasn't very good in my mind. So I think that's one. And then they signed Tony Adams. So they brought back, so now they have, actually, I'm just going to look up the whole list. Let's look at Titans signings this offseason. It's hilarious. Between him and Dable, they just signed everybody. So they traded for Jermaine Johnson. They traded for Solomon Thomas. They signed John Franklin Myers. They signed Tony Adams. And then from the Giants' perspective, they signed Wan'Dale Robinson, Cordell Flott. They signed Mitch Trubisky, who was with Brian Dable with the Bills. It's just everybody has played. It's the Jets and Giants of 3 years ago, all playing together. It's crazy. Yeah, at this point, it's like, why is he doing this? Why is the GM allowing this to happen? It's crazy. So I don't know. I really want to beat the crap out of the Titans this year. That's the one team that I really want to beat. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, that's all I got for today. We'll see if any more signings come in over the next couple of weeks. We'll see if any trades come in. But I think the rest of the way here, we're going to be preparing for the draft. So I'll have some more mock drafts up and doing that, seeing different scenarios, how they play out. We're probably going to hear rumors about people trading up, trading out, all that kind of stuff in the draft. So we'll see how that goes. I purchased my ticket for night one, so I will be in the theater for night one of the NFL draft, which I'm very excited about. And we'll kind of go from there because it's one of the most fun events of the year. So thank you, everybody, for listening. I'd love to hear from you. If you guys have a favorite signing or someone that you still want to sign, please let me know. And I'll do some more content and stuff like that across all the social channels. But if you could please like, rate, subscribe, review, follow JuicyJet25 across Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. That would be much appreciated. But thank you all for listening, and I'll talk to you again probably next week or in my shorts throughout the rest of the week. See y'all later. Have a good weekend.